Blessings, blessings. Let's see, can you hear me? Can you see me? Blessings, blessings. Let's make sure. Hello, microphone check. Okay. So I'm not going to be able to hear you guys, but I'm going to try my best um, to make sure that my sound is good. We will be doing, this is an improv live, somewhat. Hold on. And this live is not for men. This is for women. Let's get this. All right, bear with me, guys, because I'm still trying to get my mic situation together. Today, I'm going to be starting a new series, or let's see how this goes. We're going to be doing lives that's dedicated to women only. All right, so if you are a man, you can sit back and listen, but we don't ask for your opinion within these lives. Now, this particular live, I want to address my beautiful queens. If you're a Hebrew, not a Hebrew, this is going to be focused on, relationships, our sexuality, and kind of understanding how we got where we are in society right now, where relationships is underrated and sex is underrated. And my goal here today is to basically have these conversations with our women to help bring back our virtue. Okay. And as a Hebrew woman, I've noticed that, within the sect of Hebrew Israelites, we don't have a lot of women who actually are up to minister to talk up about our issues or even just their perspective from the Bible. So you will see me doing that on this particular channel because I am not part of a Hebrew camp organization. And we'll get to talk about that and the reason why I'm not part of it. And I think it's because of some of the things that I have seen related to the way that they treat women. So this particular live is going to be for women who have basically had enough. Haven't found what they've been looking for, and I want to address why we have not found what we've been looking for. So, I'll start off by saying this. What makes me feel like I can speak on this particular subject because me as a woman, I have made the sacrifice and become a virtuous woman. How did I do that? I'm not perfect, but I have practiced abstinence for the last 8 years, somewhat by choice and somewhat not by choice. Okay. And I want to say, living in Atlanta, Georgia right now, this has to be the most beautifulest feeling that I feel to be able to walk around and have my virtue and be able to tell a man, "Oh, I'm abstinent," because in the land of Babylon, where we live right now in Atlanta, there's nothing but sexualism, bisexualness, and even swing parties. So this is a tip. It's pretty normal to be explicit out here. So when I'm talking to a gentleman and he happens to hear that I'm abstinent, it really like either blows him, throws him off, or it intrigues him. So because I am reopening myself up to dating, not yet, but in my mind, I wanted to talk to women about our role and some of the reasons why I chose to be abstinent, as well as some of the biblical references on why we are the way we are as a nation, as women, and why we are so boggled down with mental illness as women. Okay. It's directly related to society. the way we interact with society and what we give society. So, I want to start off by talking about the fallen angels. Let's start talking about the fall because I think this is one of the primary points in history where us as women we played a major role in the downtrodden of our nation and the world. This is after the Adam and Eve story because you already know about that. But I want to talk about the fallen angel and the daughters of Israel because a lot of people don't take that in account that we were the spearheads, not just the fallen angels, allowing the destruction of man and this earth to happen. So just going back to Genesis 6, where the sons of God, which is interpreted as the angels, the fallen angels, they came down and they cohabitated with the daughters of Israel. So, when people read that, I think they look at it as it being like somewhat of a folk tale or how could that happen? So I want to talk a little bit about the how can that happen from a spiritual realm. And this is all for information and educational purposes only. But I do want you guys to realize that there is a true spiritual essence to man and woman, recreation and us intertwining into each other. And this is why they have this thing called sex magic. This is why you have the elites using these honey traps and things like that because we have this magic within us. So I want to express this to the women because I think the word virtue probably don't even come up on the algorithm because there are few women who would even want to categorize themselves as being virtuous or even want to because that's not a social norm. All right, so as we go back to Genesis 6, where the fallen angels came down and made with the daughters of Israel, what I have learned that it wasn't a situation that happened by force. A lot of people believe that the fallen angels came down and they just forced themselves upon the women. But if you read the book called The Angels, okay, the fallen angels, and there's another book I want to reference when it comes to my head, but it gives you a breakdown of the relationship between the fallen angels and the daughters of Israel. Not only did they have a strong attraction and affection for us as the daughters of Israel, but the daughters of Israel had a strong affection for the fallen angels and what they can get from the fallen angels, highlighting that the fallen angels came down and taught man allegedly a lot of things that was known as defilement, okay, like war, like makeup and alchemy and things like this. But to my knowledge, a lot of the magic as far as makeup, alchemy, spiritual possession, I believe that it was ushered in by the daughters of Israel. I feel it. I believe it was ushered in by us by having these relationships with us, having a relationship with the fallen, and it led to a lot of spiritual implications. Now, this is going to be an abstract conversation. I'm kind of just rolling with the punches because I want to kind of set the foundation down of my thinking and why I approach things the way I do. And maybe this help some women, young women who haven't been taught how to be women, who haven't been taught their virtue, and the older women who have not been taught their virtues to start looking at things a little bit different, not only valuing yourself, but seeing the spiritual implications of actually defiling yourself. Okay. So, as I mentioned, this wasn't a one-way street when it came to the fallen angels having affection for man. The women, the daughters of Israel, wanted to have these relationships with the fallen angels, according to the book of angels, um, highlighting that the angels were beautiful, they were cunning, they were tall. Yeah, tall is a good thing. Women love tall women, tallness. I'm just, I'm just playing. But also, they were able to give the women power by way of teaching and guiding them. And as women, we, no matter what it is, the way society tries to shape us, we like to be led. We like our men to teach us, to take control, to, open our eyes to things. So this was one of the original downfalls of Israel. It was us as women defiling ourselves with the fallen angels. Some was taken by force, but many was not, because these women um became high priestess. These women became well versed in alchemy and magic, and they fell in love with their Nephilim babies. They love the Nephilim babies. If you read the story about the giants and the relationship that they had with the humans, their mothers adored them before the giants went astray, because they were basically not fit for this world. And we'll talk about this in another live. They wasn't fit for this world. They literally lost their mind and started to eat humans, eat each other, and things like that. But it was prophesied that we will watch the angels, our kids, the Nephilim, destroy themselves in front of us. And why would God prophesy that for the daughters of Israel, or the women who defiled themselves with the fallen? It's because we had deep affection for not only the angels, but as well as what they can bring us, and the Nephilim who was destroying the world. Okay, so I wanted to kind of start getting that out just a little bit. We're going to do a full teaching on the fallen angels, the daughters of Israel, and how this mutated, from what I've learned, into the marine kingdom. But we're going to talk just a little bit about that right now. These daughters of Israel not only was punished by watching their seed, which is the Nephilim, defile the earth, kill each other, kill humans, but also our ancestors, and I'm saying our because I consider myself a Hebrew Israelite woman by blood. Our ancestors had to pay retribution. And when we go into these teaching, I'll be able to show you more reference where it's alleged, and this is according to references where I have looked into necromancy and learned about the book of the dead, and I really wanted to understand how would angels and women actually mix and make another being. So we'll talk about that. I do have a idea of that, but to get back to what we were saying, I was saying that the women had to basically pay for what they have done. So this is where we get the spark of the marine kingdom. Now, I want to give you an example of where we had a taste of the marine kingdom in the time of Jesus. Now, if we go into Matthew 8 and Mark 5, around Luke 8, there's records of events where Jesus cast demons out of people. And he cast these demons out of people and called them legions. Do you remember where he cast the demon known as the legion into a large herd of pigs? Because the demon basically said, "What are you doing here?" He saw our Lord and Savior Yeshua, known as Jesus Christ by Christians, virtue. He saw his spirit, and the demon said to Jesus, "You're unlawful. You're not supposed to be here. Why? Like, how did you get here?" And he begged Jesus to don't cast him into the abyss right now, into the pits of allow him to go into the pig. So you go review that because Jesus Christ did cast the demon legion into the pig. And where did the pig run to? Into the ocean, into the sea. And that's when you have to ask yourself, why? Why would the pig cast run into the sea to his death, but didn't want to be cast into the abyss to his death, which should lead to the same place by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? It's because when he went into the water, the legion, which was in the pig, they did not go into an abyss. They went into the marine kingdom. And when we get into the marine kingdom, we're going to start talking about the Leviathan spirit, the physical aspects of it, and the spiritual aspects of it. Because when you read it, it seems like it's a physical creature, but it's a spiritual aspect of it. Okay. So I hope this is starting to make some sense to you as far as when it comes to the fallen angels, the fall of man and woman, and the part that we played, and how we crave to actually learn more and be with the fallen angels. And this is why today we're so easy to fall for the same trickery, and how can I say, the game that the devil is playing today. So instead of them having fallen angels, now we're having these covenants set between us and our fellow human man, highlighting that man can be possessed, man and women can be possessed. And allegedly, as we go down this rabbit hole in the future, and I know it's a lot of information, that the fallen angels are coming back. And they're not coming back physically, they're coming back spiritually. Okay. And they want to reap as much havoc on the world and humanity so we can be cast into the abyss in the final days. Now, one more thing before we get into the virtue of a woman, I want you guys to kind of start looking into this because I'm going to touch this topic later on in the future, which is about the three heavens, the courts that's in the heavens, and exactly where the fallen angels are, what is under the Euphrates, and where was Lucifer actually cast down to, because we have three heavens. And I think a lot of us don't realize this. So we'll give you the biblical references. I want you to Google this now because this will be for future talks. But these are some of the concepts that I need you to have in mind as we talk about this today. The woman of virtue is hard to find, and is directly linked to the practices of the fallen angels, which leads to condemnment of us. Okay, so all right, I kind of gave you some foundation, and the reason, like I said, I want to talk about this because there's not a lot of women who talk about virtue, who talk about practicing abstinence. I have been practicing abstinence for at least 9 years. And I will tell you this, ladies, I don't skip a beat when I close my eyes. Any guy who try to talk to me or people who ask me about that, I say, baby, just how them vampires sleep in the casket and they resting, I sleep just like that with no troubles. I just had to use that example where you just imagine a vampire is sleeping through the whole day, just no issues. I just had to throw that no issues. And I know it may seem hard for women to even think about being abstinent and practicing abstinence, but there are a lot of benefits to actually doing it. There's a lot of good spiritual benefits to it, as well as, how can I say this? Once you stop dealing with your lower self, which is, thinking from your girl parts, I'm just going to say it like that, you start to look at men in society a little different with a more level headed. Yes, because just like they say, men think from there, we think from our, and I'm trying to be as clean as possible. But when we think from that particular area, we go into mental madness. This is why it's not good for us as women to have so many sexual partners, um, highlighting that men, they are depositors and us women, we are receivers. So that's why when you see women who have been, in situations where they went to satanic sex rituals or abuse and things like that, even the men, regardless, there's a lot of spiritual soul ties that's connected to it and mental anguish that's connected to that. So imagine without it being forced on you and you're giving yourself willingly to a man that may not have the same intentions as you as a woman, because we want to be loved. We think that it may not start as love but it's going to end up as love. But usually the way a man finds you is the way he's going to leave you, and the way he looks at you in the beginning, sometimes it gets a little bit better, but for the most part, if he sees you like someone who's a one-nighter and you allow yourself to be a one-nighter, you're going to be a one-nighter. And that's why I say we have the power of virtue in us. And it's not to control men, it's actually to control us and to control our happiness, our mind, which leads to us having a better household, a better social life. All right, so I wanted to throw that out because I don't think a lot of people, that concept out there, because I don't think a lot of women are taught um, that we are the receivers and men are the depositors. And also, there is a study, and hopefully I can pull it up over here because I have so much to say. But there was a study done that allegedly sperm stays within the female body for at least 30 days. Okay, let me just double check. Hold on 1 second. Let me just Google that real quick. But I remember that. Hold on. We having this conversation. The Okay, well, actually, it stays up. It says it can live inside the female reproduction system correction up to 5 days, waiting for an egg. Now, there is a spiritual applications of this because when the egg is fertilized, obviously there is like a big boom effect that happens. Now, mind you, you have this little spiritual being, little spiritual sperm that's just riding all around, all into your uterus, all over, just looking for a place where to dominate. But at the end of the day, it's still within your body and you still have a piece of that man with you. That's why us as women, when we lay with men, we become so attached to them so fast because they actually leave a part of them within us if you want to look at it from the physical part of it. This is why we have to teach our daughters that you don't allow just any man to put himself into you, because remember, that sperm cell comes from that man, and that man has a mind, has a body, has a soul, has a generational connection, have a life path, have intercrossings with other women that he still has connections to. And when that's deposited into you, you are then connected to everything that man is connected to. Now, I'm going to give you an example on a 3D level. Once we get into a little shooby dooby with a guy, I don't know if it was you, but back in the day, once I used to get in, I was just like his ride or die. It was just like, yep, I'm with him. No matter if he didn't say I'm his girlfriend for life or he loved me, I love him. I'm ride or die. Everything is gonna be everything. And we start to go down this. path and living in our heads about with our expectations, okay, with the way we see things, and it starts to grow and mutate even more the more we spend time with the guy. Now, physical example of us taking on this guy after having these relations, I used to notice that I used to pick up on the lingo of the guy that I was with, or get incorporated into the lifestyle of the guy that I was with, which is good if you have someone who's actually have a good lifestyle. That's why girls look for, you have these honeycomb traps that go look for basketball players and all types of stuff, because we actually fall in line into usually our man's life. Um, it does happen, but it's a higher rate for us to be more incorporated into our man's life, i.e., the things he got going on, helping him out, taking him to work, things like that. And I'm not saying men don't do that, but I'm speaking from a female perspective. We take on a lot, and we usually put ourselves down, our wants, our needs, just to cater to that particular situation. So this is example of us taking on what the man has deposited into us. Once we have these relations, we feel this obligation to them that sometimes they don't feel for us, because we don't think the same. And that's what society has messed us up to believe, that men should think like women, or I mean, women should think like men. Oh my God, it's both ways actually. But women should think like men, and that's going to make them keep a man. Since that book came out with Steve Harvey, we have had the most masculine, how can I say, girly masculine men I ever saw in my life. The birth rates have gone down, and that's even with us in the black community. This younger generation, they don't even want kids. These women want to live their best life, get taken care of, get flued out, do whatever they want, and they're not even thinking about procreating. So a lot of society's new social norms has actually, you know, messed up our, how can I say, our relationship status, our relationship goals, and that is directly related to us being taught by the fallen, by fallen people, by fallen men, by fallen society, being taught of what is love, what is beauty. And as it's being changed and mutated, we're just going with the social norms to the point now that we as women, we think that we can just lay up with men, not knowing that we're being deposited every time we lay up with men. No matter how hard you think you is, or how much money you think you're getting, don't turn into a Summer Walker, because they make a Summer Walker look like woman empowerment, but that's actually woman destruction. For you to make babies back to back with different men with the hopes of being in love, and then give up, and now you're going to be the epitome of being, I'll be a side chick, I'll be the Pizza Hut. This is how the fallen is reshaping us as women and taking our virtue away, literally taking our virtue away and condemning us as a society, period. That's why it's really confusing to me for them to outlaw um, abortions and want to increase the birth rate, when everything in our society is literally against men and women uniting in a godly way, in the natural way. Does that make sense? So, us as women, we have to be very, very careful with how we interact with these new type of fallen angels and practices, because again, we're depositing all of that into us, leading to mental madness. Now, Summer Walker is just a small example of, the, how can I, distortion of virtue, the distortion of femininity. There's so many examples of it. And this is literally who our young girls watch and listen to. Okay. And then we get into the music industry where they're filling them up with depressing songs. It's very depressing, talking about love, you hurt me, or it's I'm the baddest chick, I sell my stuff all over the place and I don't care. Literally against creation. Women, the way that we are living is against creation. That's why I found it so important for me to take a step back as a woman and practice abstinence. It it was a choice, but by force. And I'm gonna say this by force because I needed to heal, and I directly realized that whenever I got into a relationship with someone and it went that to that extent where we intertwined sexually, there was too much of a stronger bond connection on my part as a woman, which left me vulnerable mentally in different places where that took away from what me as a person needed to do when it came to being focused on work, being focused on a business or whatever. So that was one of the things that I noticed, like when every time this happened, it's like I'm being knocked off my A game, and I don't like that. Then I noticed that, like I said, I was taking on personalities. When I look back, you know I'm going to give you an example of my kid's father. I have two kids' father, and they're both just blown. We're not going to talk about that. Just blown. Okay. If we was taught better, we'll do better. But what I will say is with the personality thing, where it came to my son's father, he was a more like, how can I say, they both was hood, but he was a more laid back, aggressive type, don't play, smooth, had his own languages, language that he'll say things like that. And I picked up on that vibe. So when I was with him, I was down. We were running the streets. I was speaking like he speak. We were vibing, twinning it up, all types of stuff. And then I reflected on the relationship I had with my daughter father, which he was in the streets, but not like my son father, but he was more carefree, like to crack jokes, a little mentally unstable, but yeah, a lot of mentally unstable, but I didn't know that. And how can I say, the direction of his life was more scattered than it was with my son's father. And I took on that same scatteredness within my life. The chaos, the up and downs, the hot and cold, the cracking jokes here and being weird there, literally picking up on the virtue of that man. So that's when I noticed that, hey, who you sleep with is actually who you become. It's like what you eat is what you become. And a lot of women don't notice that. We don't know that. We're not taught that. We just think that we could, just open our legs and we'll be okay, and wipe water under the bridge. No, you're literally setting demons within you. You're literally setting dysfunction within you because the spiritual essence of that is leaving an impression on you. It's leaving an impression on you. These are some of the things that you won't forget. That's why if you hear a song, if you have smell a smell, it may bring you back to that relationship. And that's what this all humans. But I need you to understand these things so you can realize if you're being affected by having many relationships, sexual relationships, and you're jumping from man to man and you're looking for something, you may not find that. And I'm telling you this from a life lesson, from actually living it, from for being abstinent all these years. It really made me very comfortable with myself, where it's a beauty to be comfortable without having to seek something outside for your comfort. And I think a lot of women do not have that level of comfort because we continue to seek things outside of us, just like the daughters of Israel did with the fallen, wanting the power, wanting the prestige, wanting to be with this beautiful fallen angel or whatever. Okay. And we actually changed the course of our life, society, and the world, because that led to the flood. Us mixing with them led to the flood. Okay. So I think in society, as women, we have to understand our power. Our power is in our virtue. I know people like, well, if you don't have with a guy, he don't want to be with you. If that guy is so low minded and have no, what do they call it, retention mechanism, then that's a person you don't need to be with. Okay. Within my years of being abstinent, I have talked to individuals. I had an active, how can I say, situationship for about 2 years with a gentleman. And he was so nice. It was everything I wanted. Not everything I wanted, but he gave me what I needed and I gave him what he needed, and we did not have sex. Did not go that route. But we figured out a pseudo love language where you're going to get something from somebody, somebody's going to get something from you. That's just the way a relationship works. But the love language that me and him had was, he loved my fierceness, he loved my personality, he loved the way that I stood up for myself and that I love to learn. And that may have been a weak spot for him as far as reading comprehension, because a lot of us people, our black people, we have issues but we don't want to act like it. So I used to teach him a lot. We used to just talk and he used to ask questions. And what I got from him in those 2 years was that he showed me that a man can be with you without having to touch you. A man can take you out on dates and be there for you wholeheartedly without expecting anything back physically like that, because I was filling him up with another love language, and his kindness and who he was allowed me to reset myself and start to look at my situation and my past situations more clearer, because now I'm not dealing with all of these emotions that comes with sex, with sleeping with each other. There's a whole world of it. That's what world of emotions that come with it. There's a whole world of vibrations that come with that. And that's going to bring me to the next part of this conversation. There's a reason why they made sex so underrated for our society, because sex is alchemy. It's called sex magic. They use this to control men, not just the elites, not just to catch them and put them in bad situations, but women use sex magic to have something physically, spiritually over their mate or over the person that they want to possess. Okay, so it's not only to honey trap men, like what we talk about politics, but literally it does something spiritual to you where it entraps you. Some men, okay. So this is to the nice. Okay, ladies. You have a son or a nephew that is just really nice, and then you always see him getting done wrong by women or taking advantage, and it's because of this. It is because it could be related to the sex magic, even though people may not know that they're actually practicing it. Because I tell people, people practice witchcraft all the time and don't know it. Your words is witchcraft. You condemn people, you talk about them, you call them names, you put things on them. That's witchcraft. Lying, manipulation, that's witchcraft. It may be a low form of it, but it is what it is. And it's unknowing witchcraft, and we practice it all the time. So when we see these men, because it happens to them, who are being taken advantage of, and you like, why is he with this woman? This woman is abusive and he's just such a nice guy. It's because she's probably practicing some type of sex magic, knowingly or unknowingly. You don't need a potion. You may not even need baby oil. Okay, it's the intent of the mind as well, and what the person wants from the other person. And that's why it's better for us to move as virtuous women Practice abstinence so we can have a clearer mind and start to evaluate not only society and things that's going on around us more clearer and have a better connection with our creator Yeshua, but it also allow us to evaluate our mate for what we really see in them and what we really want and need. Now, I will say this one. It's not easy at first to be abstinent. Okay. Especially when you first meet someone. We're gonna give me 1 second. We're gonna take a 2 second break. I just have one thing to do, and I will be right back with you. Here go a word from my sponsors. Hold on.
Jesus walk, Jesus walk with me, with me, with me, with me, with me, with me.
All right, all right, all right. So I'm back. Thank you, thank you. For we just had to take a second break, but um, I kind of got lost where it was at. I had to do something real quick, but let's just get back into the virtueness of a woman, and the importance of practicing abstinence. Yes, this is exactly where I was at. Where basically it allows you to evaluate the situation more wholeheartedly. And as I said, women, it's not always easy to practice abstinence. It's not always easy. We're just like men. Society has basically made sex so underrated that we think that that's just a normality that comes with every relationship, and it's really not. But what I will say is that I have met people who I felt like I was very attracted to because there is a, there is a sexual essence that come off of people, and especially if you're physically attracted to the person. But what I will say, woman, when you start to think from your lower self and you can't control yourself, I promise you, call on your Lord and Savior Yeshua. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. I'm dead serious. I had times where I was just like, oh, I just keep thinking about this guy. Oh my goodness. And I'd be like, Lord, take these thoughts out of my head. Take these thoughts out of my head. My blood, I'll be honest, blood of Jesus. And it works. I will tell you that is the first thing that I go to if it's to that point where I feel like I have someone on my brain or my lower self is moving more stronger than my higher self. You know what I'm saying? Um, I usually call on Yahshua, and he helps me stay away from those thought patterns. Also, I remind myself on what is the implications of moving forward with this person at this time like this. What will be the end result? What will be the end result of this? Would this person want me? Would I be giving the goodies up to the person and they just won't want nothing to do with me afterwards? Would I be caving in? So you have to really give yourself time to think before you move. And I want to add this again, and I have said this plenty of times. I say it to all young girls, I say it to my daughter, I say it to any female. If you don't want to give the impression that you are looking for things, try to stay out of areas that will give them oppression, give them the impression. Example: if you don't want nobody to think you're a stripper, don't go to the strip club half naked. Okay. If you don't want to be tempted with, possibly the pressure of this guy being on you or you breaking your virtue, don't Netflix. Don't Netflix and chill. Maybe you do a online Netflix with someone, but forget, especially if you don't know each other's love language and you guys are just meeting each other. I don't think that is a good idea to be in an intimate settings with guys that you just met. Don't go to hotel parties. I don't care if they say it's a hotel party, a bunch of people there. These are some of the things that we have to teach our daughters, and we have to reiterate in ourselves as well. Don't go over somebody's house at 12 o'clock at night and say, oh, we just going to chill and watch TV. That's just not how it works, and we have to be realistic with these things as women. you know as far as our dressing attire, yes, we have voluptuous beautiful bodies, and sometimes we just can't hide it no matter what we wear. But to intentionally go outside half naked and expect for a man to hold you up to the highest esteem, I think that is mental madness. I think that's mental madness. That's European mental fuckery, excuse my language, that they have done to us, that we can lower our virtue, disrespect ourselves, have our body hanging out, basically acting like German women back in the day, butt naked, taking pictures outside, but nobody is not to touch us or to disrespect us. They supposed to have just the total self control, and we just not supposed to. That is not how it's supposed to work at all. I really do believe that us as the daughters of Israel, we have to step it up in society. That's why I think it's good for us to have this conversation, because one, there's not a lot of women that talks like this at all. I know I'm rare and few, but I have seen the benefits of actually practicing abstinence. I have felt the clarity of my mind practicing abstinence, as well as it on a spiritual note. It allows you to help break some of those generational curses. A lot of our family are tied down with generational curses directly related to incest, child abuse. Um, um, it's right at the tip of my tongue. I'm saying cheating, but you know what I'm talking about. The I'm working on my vocabulary, guys, but just having cheating in the family and infidelity, we have to break that. And the only way we break that if we stop practicing like that. If your mother and your father went through um a relationship where your father cheated all the time, and bring all these women in, and your mother dealt with it and all types of stuff, you be the woman that breaks that pattern. You be the woman that say, hey, I'm not going to deal with this type of person, because I'm not going to allow this same cycle to happen, this generational curse. I'm not going to be this type of woman and allow this to happen to me as though I have no self esteem and nowhere to go or nothing to do, because we're going to break these generational curses. A lot of these actions of what we're doing that's placed down through to us, it comes from society, social norms that is actually not social norms. We have made good, bad, bad, good, if you know what I mean. It also has been passed down by um, generational norms of what we've seen happen in our household, so we continue the same behaviors. And then it's passed down because we're literally just weak. We're weak as women, and we're hurting. And the best thing to do if you're hurting, coming from an abusive relationship, being sexually abused as a child, it is to retract, separate, and discover who you are. That is the first thing that I would recommend. Anyone that's going through any type of mental battles, spiritual battles, the first thing to do is to find a safe place, and you build that relationship with you and Yahshua, and ask him, how can I heal? Show me, what can I do to heal? Show me what I need to heal from. Show me how to pray. Prayer is very important, guys. But that's another thing we're going to be talking about, the power of prayer. And I'm not a Christian, and I'm not coming from a religious perspective. I'm coming from a power perspective, a perspective from the Most High Yah. That's the only way that we actually connect to God, is by way of our prayers and our actions, because He see. Yes, He see everything. So, I don't want to make this too long-winded, I don't know how this is going to do as far as content, but I do think it's very important for us as women, especially Hebrew women, to have an outlet to talk about these particular things because the image of a woman, our virtue, and who we are has been so distorted in society that we put trans women above ourselves. We started mimicking trans women. This is how much we follow. We bigged up trans women, and now we're looking like trans women when they were trying to look like us. We have to do much better, sisters. We have to have these conversations with our daughters so we can reshape our society. Now, we're not talking about America, we're talking about our nation, our family, our generations. I know you're sick of living in or seeing within your family divorce, abuse, cheating, all of these things. A lot of these things can be circumvented if we learn how to approach it. A lot of things happen to us women because we allow it to happen, and that's real. I do believe in love. I do believe in the relationship of man and woman, and that is part of life. That is what God want for us. But the way that we are approaching it has been severely obscured. It is detrimental to us mentally, physically, and spiritually. And we have to do something to make a change. So I hope you got a lot from this conversation. I will be following up in the future. We'll be going to talk about um, the specified information related to the fallen angels, the daughters of Israel, the creation of the marine kingdom, and how we use these particular virtues to, how can I say, degrade our society. It is degrading our society, period. And the good thing about it is that this degradation is going by slow. It may seem like it's a lot, but at least we didn't make it to the point that God want to flood us again. How about that? So, with that goes to say, I want to say thank you so much for being here with Grace. You have a beautiful, beautiful Sabbath, and I'll see you on our next live.
Jesus walked